movement of students. I might not go name by name, but the movement of students. Then there was a question when Ezekiel, when they presented, there was a question around the lease agreement and student then giving a 30-day notice and so on. So, while obviously the contract regulates the relationship between the lessor and the lessee, you can't just say, I had a 30-day notice to give, I gave you 30 days notice, and therefore I'm out of here, without cause. Obviously, you can choose what you want to choose, but there has to be reasonableness. And if there's no reasonableness, perhaps there has to be some consequences for your actions as well. Because NSFAS pays for the student, the money follows the student. If NSFAS doesn't know of those movements, when the file comes to NSFAS for payment, it could create problems. So, again, I want to emphasize that the landlord who's receiving the student, please make sure the student has cancelled the lease on the other side and entered into a lease with yourself. And in fact, NSFAS is paying if that student is an NSFAS student. If the student is funded elsewhere, not by NSFAS, that's a different issue. So the issue of movement of students, it's an issue that we need to emphasize in our guidelines, but also have a way in which it happens. It can't be just haphazard. We need to make sure that it creates a degree of certainty as well. But there's also a suggestion of a dispute resolution mechanism between the student, the landlord, and ourselves. Maybe the institutions might come into the equation there. So that's something that I think the task team must think about and see how would that look like and how would it function. So that when there are issues between the students and the landlords as well as the institution and ourselves can be resolved. Matebula, the issue of policy certainty is an important one. We're doing the work we are doing, including the roadshow, because, of course, the roadshow, if you think about it, if it had happened between March and April, it would be great because we put in place plans to make sure the things that come out of the roadshow are implemented for the coming year. But the administration only happened in April and there were other burning issues to attend to. So it was impossible to do the roadshow. But part of this consultation process is to make sure that we've got some certainty going forward. There is in fact a proposal already to make some of the guidelines valid for a longer period of time, 2 years, 3 years, unless there are changes that are essential to be effected immediately. We've been working towards. Having said so, some of the policy and the big input into policy is a political process. If our political master picks up issues that are of immediate imperative and necessity, there may well be changes that happen, and we would try to all in our power that such changes are not abrupt. And I know that the minister wishes that to happen. I've had conversations with her about it. The payment date I think I need to emphasize again that where we pay through solution providers, which is Zikel, CoInvest, Morocco, and Tenet, where we pay through those fellows, we transfer the money to them. They would load it, like I understand it showed on your bank, on your portal on Saturday, but the money only showed up yesterday for those of you that are working with TVET colleges. So that process takes a few extra days. We want to shorten that process, to shorten first the route from our bank account to your bank account, and in doing that, streamline the process so that once Sibongile says, Mr. Nombala, I'm ready to pay, sign here, and the CFO and other people sign and I sign, they turn around to press the button. When they press the button, when you go to sleep that evening, if your bank is the same as our bank, the money should be in your account, otherwise the following day in the bank. We want to be in that space, but we are not there. Again, I want to emphasize there's a conversation we're going to have with the solution providers to get to that point. And there may well be some processes and procedures that we need to put in place to make it happen, so that we don't lose your money and create other inefficiencies again. Bandile, the students at TVET colleges, we're paying them directly. So the money leaves our bank account straight into the bank account of the student. If the student banks with the same bank that we bank with, the money gets to the student on the same day. If it banks with a separate bank, it gets processed around 7 o'clock into the evening, and then it starts showing from midnight in the other student bank account. That's what makes that process quicker, because we pay it exactly on the same day. But because the other payment mechanism works through the solution provider, and they need to make sure that they do the right thing as well on their side, so it takes longer. And that's a conversation we're going to have to try and shorten that process. It's not that we favor students over accommodation providers. The methods of payment between the two stakeholders are different. To the extent that you say there are students that are still not paid, while I do the closing remarks, there are colleagues who are sitting outside here. On that particular point, there's somebody else as well who raised that, I think it was Pumza. To the extent that there is a specific payment that you are querying that has not been made, please don't lose the opportunity while people are here. The teams that are on the desk outside are there to attend to that. Please do so. I would not be able to respond to a specific case. I would have to get the documents and so on. They are able to go to the system and look to it and advise accordingly. I think the movement of students between properties I've spoken to, we need to regulate that properly. Staying for a long time unverified, this issue, for me, it talks to onboarding. If a person stays for a long time unverified, but a person should never be onboarded unless the person is verified. So I know that in as far as this 2024 is concerned, there were problems at the beginning of the year. We don't anticipate those problems for next year. So just please, everybody, before you onboard students, know that you've got all of the necessary documents to do so. It is unacceptable, of course, that we have appeals that have been staying for a long time. Our systems are not allowing us to do that, but all of them have been processed, and there is a memo on my desk now that I have to look at and decide which way we go. Movement of students we talked to, the 2 students that have not been paid since February, you can go there. The issue of emergency services, it is expected, of course there is an OSH Act as well, Occupational Safety and Health Act, that if you have a lot of people in your property, you need to observe the requirements of that legislation. Section 16 of that legislation has got the import that if anything happens and you are not complying with that legislation, you could be jailed. So, and if you've got people that are appointed, you need to delegate certain responsibilities in terms of that legislation. So emergency services might arise in the context of that legislation as well. So if you are an accommodation provider, remember there are certain legislations you must comply with from an environmental point of view, health point of view, and safety point of view. Now, those get into the cost of providing a bed. The conversation we were having earlier about how do we deal with that issue, and the start by IFC is supposed to address that issue. Was it Tilly or somebody that talked about the board? The voice came from somewhere this side. But first, the way I can address this question, because I would be lying to you when I say the board might not think different on some specific issue. But if the things we're doing make sense, it doesn't make sense for anybody to change them. But having said that, I cannot guarantee that when somebody new comes, they don't want to. I sweep with my left hand, the person can come sweeping with the right hand and decide to move furniture around. But the comforting issue is that in my conversations with the minister, she understands that NSFAS needs to work better. She's committed to making NSFAS work better. We will have continuity in relation to that. And she has undertaken that she will make sure that we make NSFAS work. And when she appoints people to the board, she appoints people that would have some clout that will enable this organization to function and function properly. So that is the issue around the specific questions that were still outstanding. I tried to be increased, Doctor. So I'm not going to take his duty of preaching, because I failed my lay preacher course. But this is the point at which I think I should thank everybody for being here. Thank you for also housing these events. I'm not going to lie and say I'm poor. I wouldn't be the administrator and then claim to be poor. I would be insulting people. But I come from a family where my father was a security guard and my mother was a housewife. So our source of income was extremely limited. We had cattle, we had goats, we had sheep, we had chicken, and we had mini fields that we would wake up early in the morning, put a span of cattle and go till the land. So, yes, we've got a distant memory now, but I know exactly how the students who are funding as NSFAS would be growing up under difficult circumstances, because it's exactly the same circumstances I grew up. So we really, and I emphasize this to all of our employees at NSFAS, we really need to make sure that we are mindful of the impact of our actions or lack of actions on others. When we don't pay on time, people's credit rating suffers. As a result, they face a difficult circumstance where they end up being hospitalized. And in some instances, sadly, students die. So we really need to understand the impact of our actions and act in a manner that seeks to improve that impact. That's the commitment that when I met employees at NSFAS, I said to them, we do need to think about that. It's sometimes not easy, because we've got a few teams. We've got a Sibongile's team, we've got operations team, we've got IT team, we've got finance team. When wheels come apart, nobody wants to be the one that takes the blame. No, I dropped the ball. They will be pointing elsewhere and there will be heated discussions. But what we've been able to try and do is to remember that our own differences within the organizations are minor compared to the pain we are causing people outside. And when we come to yourselves and say, we're sorry about what has happened, we are committing to doing something different, we are not saying that lightly. We're saying that from a really, really deep understanding of the pain that this has caused. Our report, when we do our closeout report as the administration to whomever will be taking over when the board is appointed, we'll emphasize that point very, very strongly. All of the issues that have been raised about specific challenges that have happened will be in that report. Because we don't want to leave a gap where people say, I did not know. When we came and witnessed that on behalf of those that will come behind us. So our report will capture everything. We are recording these sessions so that we don't miss out anything. So as I thank you for participating today and for all your suggestions, I also urge you that without your support in terms of pointing out the wrong things we do, we are unlikely to improve quickly, but also pointing out the things that some of your colleagues do and some of the people we appoint as our agents, either on verification, on accreditation, or any other process. Those people will get away with murder as long as we don't expose them. We do need to expose them and deal with them appropriately. In as far as the students are concerned, I feel very sorry for them. I started smoking cigarettes when I was still at standard 3, standard 4. Our teacher used to send us to go to school, to the shop, which was about 1.5 kilometers away. We would run, they would buy BP Best Blend. And there was Boxer, but there was BP Best Blend. Best Blend had a nice packet, which you could just open and take a little bit and put it in your pocket. During break, you've got your own smoke. So I know kids do wrong things because of the child in them. Sometimes just wanting attention. So our kids will stray, they will misbehave. We do need to hold them accountable. We do need to redirect their behavior. If I was left to my devices as a young fellow, I would possibly not be standing here and talking all of these things that I'm saying. But somebody cared enough to say, we're not going to let you destroy your own life. We're going to beat you until you get into shape. I'm not suggesting you beat them. Nelson Mandela came out of jail having forgotten how to beat kids and said we must stop beating kids, it's abuse. So we're not going to beat them. You know, I sometimes look at my granddaughter when I talk to her, she says, I say, it's sleeping time. She says, no. And I say, it's sleeping time. She says, no. When she says that the second time, I know she's not going to do it. I need to find a different strategy. But working together, we negotiate until we find a way that she behaves. I think as we work with these kids, let's remember, they are the future, and they've got a lot of potential with them. Just one mistake is not the end of the world. We need to hold them accountable, make them understand the consequences of their actions, but at the same time, guide them. We were there at some stage ourselves. So I want to thank the institution for hosting us as well. It's really appreciated. I did meet with the VC in the morning, and thank the colleges around that did come to visit this process and do undertake that the issues that came out of today will be part and parcel of the report as well as inform what we do going forward. And thank you very much, Lord.
Colleagues, we've come to the end of our program. I thank you very much for your attentiveness. I allowed us to also be cordial with each other. I'm very happy that we were able to hear each person who had an issue or concern. It may not have been all, may not have been to the extent that you wanted. And I, at the end of the program, do this. If I have crossed any line in any way, it was unintended, please forgive me. The city of Mbombela is beautiful. I haven't been here in over 15 years, and I was quite surprised by what I saw when I landed. I'm sure we will be back. It was awesome meeting all of you. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence, and have a good day, further.